Welcome to Little Home Projects. In this video, I'm burning letters into some toy wood blocks and testing out my homemade kid-safe wood finish. I'm going to be burning the kids' names into some of the smaller blocks. To do this, I went to the local craft store and picked up an iron called the Walnut Hollow Hot Marks to burn in the letters. It comes with several ends to draw your own freestyle designs, as well as a few pattern stamps. I also added the alphabet pieces to my purchase, which means I'll probably find a lot more uses for this down the road. I've never used one of these before, so I wanted to do a few test stamps before I used it on the final blocks. I found a cutoff of the same wood that I used to make the blocks from and started testing. The iron takes several minutes to heat up, and I found the longer you let it sit, the hotter it gets, which means the faster it burns into the wood. I found if you weren't paying attention to how hot you let it get, you could easily let it sit for too long and start burning in the shape of the iron, rather than just the shape of the letter. And once I felt comfortable with it, I set up my blocks to start spelling out the names. I wrote each of the names on a scrap piece of cardboard, keeping each of the letters spaced the same size as one of the blocks. This way I could easily visualize how many of the same letter had to be stamped before needing to let the iron cool down, change the letter, and heat back up again. The three names I'm doing are Alexander, Zinnia, and Ryle. I started with the first letter on the first name, and then checked the cardboard to see if there were any other instances of the same letter. I figured this would be the best approach to get through all the letters as fast as possible. I started with the A in Alexander, found all the other A's, and stamped them out all at the same time. Even with this approach, I could tell this was going to take a long time. Every time I wanted to change a letter, I had to let it heat up, use it, let it cool down, and then change it again. Once I got working, I found that the iron wouldn't always sit perfectly flush on the block of wood. So what I ended up doing was rolling the letter onto the wood. So starting at the bottom, rolling forward over the top slowly so that everything got a nice even amount of pressure, and that way if the wood wasn't perfectly flat, I'd still get a nice imprint of the letter. I picked up another piece of scrap wood and a pair of needle nose pliers to take off the hot iron. This way I can move a little bit faster. Once I got the technique down, it was just a matter of repeating the process over and over again. Let it heat up, brand, let it cool down, change, let it heat up, and repeat and repeat and repeat. When I was done, I sat back to admire my work and realized I had missed the D in Alexander. So I have to go back and steal a block from one of the other sets, rebrand the D to fix it. So, no one will ever know. With all the letters done, it was time to move on to trying my homemade wood finish. This is a blend of baby oil and beeswax. I mixed them together in the kitchen and it smells pretty nice. If you want to see how I made this finish, I'll post a link in the description below. My first approach was to use a piece of paper towel to rub on the finish. I was hoping that it would just save the grease from being on my fingers, but it didn't really help, and eventually the piece of paper towel would get so beat up that I'd have to change it out pretty often. So what I ended up doing later on down the project is I just got rid of the paper towel and used my bare fingers to rub the material in. The end grain of the wood really wanted to soak up the finish, so I took a bit of extra time here and made sure that lots of it went in to protect the wood right. I found that the real benefit to using this finish over other traditional finishes is that it didn't have an odor like those ones do. It smelled nice just like beeswax and baby oil. Also, this stuff doesn't dry and stick to whatever it's touching. Most finishes, you can only do one side. You have to wait for it to dry before you could flip it over and do the other side. With this, you can just do the entire piece at once and stack them to the side. The only downside to this finish I found is that because it doesn't dry the same, if you use too much of it, you have to come back with a paper towel later on and clean off the excess. Here's a really great example of the before and after side by side. This finish gave the wood a really warm golden feel. It felt really smooth. I used a little too much on the surfaces, so I'll have to come back later on and polish it off, but overall, I think it makes the wood look really great. After making about halfway through the box, I came to the realization that it was just going to be simpler to get rid of the paper towel altogether. Also, I found that the wide mouth in the mason jar came in handy at this point, because I could get in deep into the jar, pull out a good amount, use the top of the mason jar lid as a palette, and then I could just scoop small amounts off and rub it into the wood with my fingers. Using my fingers instead of the paper towel let me push the finish into the wood a little bit deeper, and in the end it was actually easier on my fingers. This is another part of the project that does take a good amount of time. So put on the radio, put on a TV show, just take your time and rub in the finish. I was curious to see how this finish would work with the burn-in of the letters. I found that right away, it just worked. It made the letters pop, and the wood got the same golden glow that it was getting on everything else. It looked great. When I compared the letters to before and after, I found that the finish helped bring out the burn marks as well in the wood, making it easier to see. I continued on with all the pieces. It probably took me about an hour and a half to do all the pieces of wood. After that, I still wanted to go back and wipe it all down with a paper towel. That took about another hour as well. And in the end, I was really happy with how it all came out. The finish gave it a nice, really warm golden color, and I feel like it looks really natural, and it feels like it'll protect it well. It smells great and has a really velvety, smooth feeling. The things I learned on this project though was that blocks aren't as easy as you might think. Cutting the blocks wasn't too difficult, but the sanding was a long task. It took a while to get done, and the polishing was a long task. It took a while to get done. So this is a nice craft, and it is fun to do, and you can kind of do a lot of it inside while you're watching TV, so it's nice and easy, but it's not as straightforward as I was expecting. It was definitely a little bit harder, but I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm able to give them to my niece and nephews. Thanks for checking out my toy blocks building video. If you want to see more from Little Home Projects, please hit the subscribe button, and if you thought this video has earned it, please give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.